Joining us now is one of my favorite people of all time ever because he's just a cool cat and he invented talk radio. Joining us now is Michael Harrison. He's the publisher of Talkers Magazine and Talkers.com. This is where all the people in our business go for info. And he puts this thing together. It's out every day. He's got all kinds of updates. But he's been around for a very long time. He has seen radio go everywhere, up and down and all around. And we're going to get his take on the future of talk radio and what's happening with the AM dial and all of the things going on, and does it have a future or not, online, podcast. Michael Harrison, great to have you with us,
It's great to be with you, John Fredericks. The Godzilla meets the guru.
The Godzilla, that's right. You are the guru of talk
you said
radio.
That. I don't know if I invented talk radio. I did invent the concept of the talk radio industry, where it actually was taken seriously. When we started Talkers Magazine, there were basically a handful of talk show hosts.
I know, right?
It was a sideshow. Yeah, it was a little sideshow in radio.
And when was that, Mike?
That was 1970 is when we launched the first issue. Talkers is 28 years old.
How'd you come up with the idea?
Well, I've had a dual career as a broadcaster and as a trade publisher. So I was involved all the way back to the rock and roll days in the 70s with radio and records, and then I was a chart editor and consultant to Billboard magazine. So and I was doing a talk show on FM rock radio in LA between 1975 and 1986. I was way ahead of the curve, and I just had a feeling going into the 90s that talk radio was going to be the big thing. I knew how to broadcast, and I knew about trade publishing, trade magazines. So I created Talkers, and we were right at the beginning of it, and reflected it and boosted it and talked about it, defined it, and 28 years later, here we are. Talk radio is the number one format in all of radio. It's what keeps radio alive. It's where all the stars are. They're not star DJs anymore. It's talk show hosts. So it turned out to be pretty cool. And I keep my hand in broadcasting as well. And I love coming to this because I do about 25 interviews in 2 days. You're my second one. I'm fresh now. Don't talk to me tomorrow.
I'm getting the thing going, right? Because, I forget. I go off the air at 11 a.m., but I forget that this goes on until midnight, basically.
It
goes on.
There are
you kind of forget about it.
60 shows.
It's a big turnout.
And this has been where the immigration issue has been alive for the past dozen years. Immigration has not always been a front burner issue in terms of the mainstream media. But talk radio has always reflected the concern of the American people about immigration. And, of course, with Donald Trump being elected president, it's now front burner. So this year is a record breaker for this event. And everybody's not of the same political mind. There are many different points of view on immigration. But most of the commonality here is that something has to be done to at least tighten up the rules. And I'm interested in it because I don't get too involved in partisanship. I try to... I'm more of a First Amendment guy, and I'm into the broadcasting industry. I think it's important. But I think that this issue needs extra support because it's such a hot button issue. A lot of people who have very legitimate concerns are branded racist or try to shut down. So I try to defend that, and that's why I'm here.
Well, you do a fabulous job. We're with Michael Harrison. He's the founder and publisher of Talkers Magazine. You can go to Talkers.com. This is like the industry standard where all people in talk radio go. And one of the most coolest things he has is annually he comes out with a heavy 100, and it's an honor to be. I'm fighting to get on the heavy.
You're on the verge.
I'm fighting. I'm like right in the bubble. I'm fighting to get on the heavy 100, and hopefully we'll lobby to get there next time. Michael, I want to talk about the business for a second, the talk radio business, and radio in general for the spoken word. Where's it going?
I think it'll always be around. I don't know whether it's going to be on AM and FM. I mean, technology changes, but, speaking and storytelling and complaining and debating and arguing and...
Taking calls.
Taking calls or taking texts or taking tweets or, there's so many ways now that information can be shared. Will continue forever. As long as there are human beings, that's what will be. I don't see it ever ending. I see different kinds of music coming in and out of style. I see radio as an AM/FM appliance facing tremendous challenges, but that's not going to go away for a while. But I see talk shows of the nature that you do always being around, within the foreseeable future.
Well, we've seen the percentage of our audience on digital means, through our app or online, growing almost every single month, where now it's probably 15% of the listeners that we have, or could be 20% now. The last time we did analysis 6 months ago, 17% of our listeners were coming digitally.
Yeah.
And, when we started, it was like 1%. That was 8 years ago.
Right.
But now, even people in the markets, you always think, okay, well, they're getting you digitally because they're in a market without radio. No.
People are listening digitally.
Half of those are in markets where we have pretty good affiliates.
Yeah. Well, AM has its problems.
Phone.
AM has problems in terms of offices in major cities. You can't get them in the buildings. There's a lot of interference.
Right.
So a lot of people don't even realize they're listening digitally. They're so in the habit of using their computer for input that they get their radio that way. And there are these apps, there's TuneIn and radio.com and that make it very easy.
Very easy.
So I think more than the percentage you're saying is actually listening digitally, and I think it's going to ultimately be everything will be digital.
Right.
But there'll be major platforms. Platforms are very key, where it's not just everybody's out there in their own rowboat. There will be major aggregates and major platforms, and that's already developing, and they will become the new radio networks, the new radio stations.
Excellent.
Only they'll be online.
They'll be online. And FM, talk radio going to FM. I mean, I'm on
It's happening.
a number of FM stations. In fact, we're in the midst of buying one in Richmond. So you want to keep pushing the FM. But I don't think the industry is going anywhere. I kind of share your bullish attitude on it. I think it's going to transition, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Well, there's a market for, a need for, more than a market, there's a need for its service. What it does is vital, and you never run out of information or material. This is, conversation about politics, conversation about sports, conversation about lifestyles, even celebrity gossip. You think that's going to go away?
I don't think so.
No.
Especially in the era that we're in now. But it is always going to be there, and we have a very divided country right now, so you got two sides. I want to get your opinion on something. We're with Michael Harrison. He's the founder and publisher of Talkers Magazine and Talkers.com, and a longtime broadcaster and one of the iconic figures in the talk radio business. And whenever he has something to say, everybody says, well, what did Michael say? It's kind of like, remember those commercials, E.F. Hutton, right? What did E.F. Hutton say? It's kind of, what did Michael say? But Chuck Todd yesterday did an op-ed published in the Atlantic. I'm sure you saw it. And he said that members of the legacy, what I'm going to call legacy news media, have to become more aggressive and start fighting back, he said, against conservative media. And he pointed out, blaming talk radio as one of the Trump echo chamber. So he said Rush Limbaugh and the rest of the talk radio Trump echo chamber in Washington, D.C. I guess he's referring to me, right? Because what is that about?
Well, it's part of the politicizing everything. And it tries to give the impression that all of talk radio is a propagandistic right-wing Republican and now Trump megaphone. It's not true. There has been conservative talk radio for decades, and conservative talk radio is just one of many formats. All of talk radio is not conservative. You have public radio, you have NPR, you have college radio. You got guys doing talk shows on rock stations, and some of them are quite moderate and liberal. It's far more balanced than people think, but a reflection of public opinion in the marketplace of ideas is there are a lot of people who have legitimate conservative views, and conservative talk radio is a legitimate medium that services their interests. It's not evil. It's not wrong. It shouldn't be shut down. And I don't think that mainstream media should label itself anti-conservative. Mainstream media should be conservative, moderate, liberal, and everything else. I don't agree with that. That only further polarizes a situation that is rather healthy. It's healthy that we have dissenting views and different views. And plus, people are behind the curve on understanding that conservative media is part of the mainstream. Conservatism is a mainstream legitimate concept. Years ago when I was growing up, they used to think right-wing radicals. Goldwater was a radical.
The Birch Society.
The John Birchers, yes, nuts, lunatics, wing nuts. It's not true. There's a spectrum of ideology that is American. It runs from the left to the right, and what we're seeing now is conservatives have taken their rightful place as part of the conversation, and a lot of liberals can't get over it. And a lot of liberals, unfortunately, are not tolerant. And they should be, because liberal means liberal. Be open.
That
makes
great
it
catch-22 about the First Amendment? I mean, the left try to shut people down when you would think based on their philosophy it would be the exact opposite.
Yeah. And there's room in today's media. There's so much media for everything to exist. The idea of shutting anybody down is completely un-American. You don't shut them down. You just let them do it and hope that most people will see it for what it is if you don't agree with it. Or maybe you should listen to what's being said. You learn that there are a lot of people out there with different points of view. I'm into listening to what people say. But you have to have belief that in the human condition that for the most part people are intelligent and for the most part people are of goodwill. Now let's hear what people say and what's their perspective. Don't shut anybody down.
It should be the opposite. And I really took exception to what Chuck Todd did. And it's almost like a whining, sniveling, editorially did an op-ed that is like, there was a time when everybody listened to me and I'm all that mattered and my friends mattered, and now there's too many other outlets and we don't matter, so let's silence them all so we can just get back to me. I mean, that's kind of what he's saying here.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Isn't it? I mean, let's just paraphrase it, right? I mean, I want to be the king and I want to share it with these other people, because you hit it on the head, Michael Harrison, when you said, there's other voices out there. There's Fox, there's talk radio, there's Limbaugh, there's what he calls, and I love this line, the rest of the Trump Washington, D.C. echo chamber. I mean, that's like three people, of which I'm one of. So I don't know what he's talking about that. But basically, if you don't like what we say, you've got 1,000 other choices. Don't tune in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That to me is a no-brainer, and I wouldn't worry about it. Actually, as far as you're concerned, things couldn't be better for you. Look, folks, if you're listening to this and you want an outside opinion, John Fredericks was not a Johnny-come-lately to the Trump train. John was talking about Trump and into Trump and a friend of Trump politically, and a supporter of Trump, an organizer for Trump, for years, and certainly during his campaign when people were mocking Trump. So you picked like Sean Hannity. You picked the right horse, and you deserve any benefits that come from that inside perspective you have on the Donald Trump era.
Well, thank you, Michael Harrison, the publisher and founder of Talkers Magazine. Go to talkers.com, and an iconic figure in the spoken word
You're
talk
kind.
radio.
Thank you.
He invented it.